is right and wrong?
I guess in his we're streaming now, by the way, to figure out what to do. I just had to turn something off and back on, which is usually how things work.
Hmm.
But anyways, I guess in his mind, he is a lawyer. And in his mind, it wasn't the government. Like, he's very distrustful of the government. It was the jury. But I still don't get that. Like,
I mean, they just sit there and listen to what the government tells them to do.
yeah.
And like, you can't, what is that word when you tell the jury that they can
Tell them about jury nullification.
Yeah, jury nullification. Like, you can't do that.
Yep. I have
Which
no
seems
clue.
like seems like obstruction of justice on their behalf.
I have no clue what made him think that way, but I'm so grateful that Jim Babb told him, oh, all that stuff is bogus, and then he looked into it because he wrote the best article anyone has written about Ian's situation. I had no clue that he learned about it the month he wrote it, because when I was reading it, I was like, was he at the trial? Does he listen to Free Talk Live? He was saying like all the stuff we say about it, and he knew every single little detail, and like really paid attention. I kind of feel like it's sad because he bought the transcripts in order to read them, but Ian actually already bought them and put them online. So, and that's just a random thought. I was like, it was for free online. But so just spreading the word. That's basically all I was saying. Like, these unlocking freedom events are a huge thing. And just getting even Jacob Hornberger to be on different things and go talk about his article, because he just like, he has the legal background. So he has like, authority, quote unquote, behind him to like some people that need that. And then he also just knows how to put things. Like he knows, I mean, for one thing, like, I love his attitude of like how ridiculous this is. Like, he talks about how what the IRS agent did to try to like trick Ian into somehow selling Bitcoin to a drug dealer, and Ian didn't fall for it, and he said, no, I won't sell to you anymore. They still are trying to claim that is money laundering because he went to his machine anyway. And that's just ridiculous.
Stop somebody from going to an unmanned machine, though.
Yeah, if there was a law that was like having an unmanned machine is illegal, that'd be one thing.
Right.
But they just tried to make that into money laundering. Mm-hmm. And then the judge rightfully threw the money laundering charge out, but not the conspiracy to money launder, which I honestly think is just in the bag for the appeal. How could that possibly be?
Well, that's like one of those charged conspiracy to do a thing. Like, how can you prove that there was or wasn't ideas?
Yeah.
It's
thought crime.
Yeah, it's one of those charges that they just throw at things and see if they can get it to stick.
Yep, I agree.
But it's one of those catch-alls. I mean, I was in a lawsuit for 5.5 years for conspiracy.
Wow.
And it actually wasn't for anything that I did, but it was conspiracy to help somebody else who did these things. Mm-hmm. And it took 5.5 years of my life, and it was actually a pretty devastating process. And initially, the case was thrown out, and then it was appealed all the way to the state Supreme Court, and the state Supreme Court reversed the decision, and we ended up having to go to mediation. And so the conspiracy and doing things over wires and things, do anything financially related across state lines, that kind of gives the federal government the ability to make up whatever they want.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, it got reversed and everything, but still took 5 years of your life, because that's the punishment is the process is the punishment. Mm-hmm. Really messes with people's lives while they're being, getting their day in court.
And there's no recourse either after they, steal your life away from you on bogus charges that get dropped or whatever like that. There's nothing you can do afterwards to get anything in recompense for it.
Yep, exactly. And it's not just about Ian. It's also about Roger Ver. I heard that there is, I mean, it's about all 5 of them, but I heard that there is a new update. I only heard this from your Twitter. I saw it today. Aaron, what is this with the government like going and talking to Roger Ver's lawyers?
Yeah, no, my understanding is that they actually raided his lawyers' offices. They violated his attorney-client privilege.
What government,
and in fact,
which government arm did this? Like the Spain or...
No, this was in the U.S. This was the IRS.
Okay.
Going back long before the Spain thing happened. This lawsuit's been going on for a long time with Roger, and he appealed it, even this breach of attorney-client privilege, all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And the U.S. Supreme Court didn't take the case. So, I mean, it went through this long appeals process, but there are implications for Rogers' case, which is that if they can breach attorney-client privilege, then, I mean, that's a pretty big deal. That has nothing to do with crypto. That precedent means that basically you can't count on, getting legal advice from lawyers or accountants without worrying about those communications being breached by the government in a case against you. So, what kind of legal system is that? And he's facing 109 years in prison if you add up all of the different charges. And he did pay taxes, and he did hire lawyers and accountants. Unlike everybody else, nobody was paying taxes on Bitcoin in 2014. So now they're going after him retroactively and saying, not even telling him how much he has to pay. Wow. He has not even been given an offer to settle. He's been in Spain for 6 months out on bail. My understanding is he has to check in with the court every 2 days. And McAfee was in this situation where he was in the Spanish prison for 8 months, is how long it took him to exhaust all of his attempts to reverse the extradition. And he failed, and then he ended up dead 24 hours after losing his last appeal. So Roger's been there for 6 months. So my guess is he's probably pretty close to potentially being shipped off back to the United States. So it's a pretty horrible situation, and nobody knows about it. It's the same as with the Ian situation. Other than me talking about it, nobody's been talking about Roger's situation.
I don't know how people don't see that these are making an example out of somebody. Like, you can go and murder someone and get less time than all of these people are told they're facing for charges that are simply hurting the government's feelings.
It made me really happy when I listened to the Kim Iverson thing last night, because I've always just thought of her as like a conservative. I really hadn't heard much from her, just seen her on maybe Twitter. She's big on Rumble, but she seems like she was really understanding that. And I emailed her to thank her for interviewing Jacob. More Free Talk Live coming up, more Aaron Day and me and Lori. Just hold on to your hat.
Free Talk Live.
Well, the ones that seek to destroy all nations in order to bring about a global domination of a one-world government, the biggest weapon that they have is rock and roll.
Isn't rock and roll dead?
You laugh.
Rock and roll's been dead for years.
It's embarrassed laughter because you know it's true.
Okay,
who's living in 1970?
Wait a second.
The origin of rock and roll is in voodoo. The devil created rock and roll, and it's used to rob man of his freedom. And you cannot go into a department store or any store in the U.S., any public space in the U.S., without hearing the African drums of voodoo. And it's used.
That is the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern at freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. In the US presidential election, campaigning heated up throughout the week as that November 5th election gets ever nearer. One poll out on Friday from the New York Times showed that they remain locked in a dead heat, with them both tied nationally. Ever since Benji Hire reports.
48% to 48%. This race is simply too close to call. Both Harris and Trump are struggling to edge a lead in the overall popular vote. This election will likely come down to the tightest of results in just a handful of states. It's there where campaigning continues today and into the weekend to try to convince those still undecided about which way they'll swing.
Also this week, the US Vice President Kamala Harris said that she believes her rival Donald Trump is a fascist. It came after his former chief of staff said the former president wanted the kind of generals that Hitler had. FSN's Mitch McCann reports.
When asked if Donald Trump was a fascist during the CNN town hall event in Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris replied, "Yes, I do. Yes, I do." It follows the Atlantic article in which John Kelly, Mr. Trump's former chief of staff, said he believed that Trump met the definition of the word. Meanwhile, the former president has seized on comments by President Biden, who said earlier this week of Trump, "We got to lock him up," before correcting himself to say he meant politically lock him up. Mr. Trump says it's proof of election interference, suggesting without evidence that the current president is behind his many legal problems. Mitch McCann, New York.
During the week, striking workers at the US plane maker Boeing rejected a pay offer with a 35% pay rise. Around two-thirds of the members from the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers rejected the proposal, meaning that the 6-week-long strike for workers in the US remained in place. US National Security Council spokesman John Kirby this week said that North Korean troops would be considered fair game and fair targets if they were deployed to fight for Russia in Ukraine. Ever since Megumi Lim sent this report from Kiev.
Based on U.S. intelligence assessments, at least 3,000 North Korean soldiers are believed to have been dispatched to eastern Russia for training. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said it was too early to confirm whether they would enter into combat alongside Russian troops, but said it was a highly concerning probability. Pyongyang is already supplying Moscow with munitions in exchange for key military technology. And with their possible deployment to Ukraine, the North Korean military would gain critical combat experience and information about the performance of their weapons systems.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160. That's the number you can call in to if you have anything on your mind. Maybe in this segment we'll talk to Aaron and we'll see if we want to take calls, but that's 603-283-6160. Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash, Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency made for spending. Dash transactions are irreversible, so Dash is great for merchants. Plus, its network is protected from 51% attacks by its Chainlocks technology. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month for this sponsorship. It's easy to get and use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. That's dash.org. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
And Lori.
And we have Aaron Day here remotely with us. So, Aaron, what else has been going on with you? You said currently you're stopping your workshops just to focus on unlocking liberty and just helping to get the word out about these people?
Yes. I mean, for right now, for the next week, I'm spending time trying to convince people that they should, particularly libertarians, that they should vote for Trump for this specific purpose. And then after the election, assuming Trump wins, then the work begins to try to raise awareness around this issue so that Trump does, in fact, follow through on his pardon on day one and then perhaps expand the list. So that's going to be the priority. I'm also working on writing a new book and actually improving the workshop. So while I'm not doing any of the events, I'm taking steps to make the events more productive when we do resume. So there's quite a bit of work going on that front as well.
Oh, and I know you do a lot of like interviews. I just started listening, but I didn't get a chance to get very deep into it. To your, you did a show with Mark Passio and Glenn Greenwald.
No, it was Rechtenwald. Sorry.
Oh yeah, Mark Rechtenwald. I know both of those people are like journalists, and who is Mark Rechtenwald?
Well, Rechtenwald is he was actually a professor at NYU who was canceled. He's been canceled 3 times. He's written 12 books on a variety of things, including the Great Reset and talks a lot about issues related to, Agenda 2030 and globalism and woke and cancel culture. He ran for president. In fact, he probably should have won the nomination. He was the Mises Caucus favorite for Libertarian presidential candidate.
Oh,
but that's a whole other
I know
story.
who he is now. Okay, I mixed him up with the journalist guy. Okay, I know who he is now. I didn't know he got fired from NYU for being not woke.
Yeah, no, he has a very interesting story, and that podcast that I did with Mark and Michael was different. It was definitely a deviation. Usually I'm focused on crypto and CBDCs, but this one went a little bit more into the depth of who's behind the push for centralization, and then more broadly, what can we do to win in this battle of liberty, which arguably we aren't winning. And so it's an interesting one, and I hope it's the first of many, because I think we could go in a lot of different directions.
Nice. I love that about Mark's work. It's like he talks about what is the situation, and he talks about what can we do about it. I'm going to take this call. It's Dan O'Neill. Dan, you're on Free Talk Live. You're on with Aaron. What's on your mind?
Well, hey guys, how you doing? I was mostly calling in just to listen in because my internet went down, but I'm loving this conversation and all the work that you guys are doing to try to get these guys out of prison.
Well, you too. You're definitely helping too.
Well, thank you. Well, it's been an interesting process with this whole movement that we've been involved with, and it kind of got interesting when Trump decided to come to the National Libertarian Convention, and then we kind of heard that he was negotiating, and he wants to talk to all the libertarians and offer us Ross Ulbricht, and possibly we'll see what else is on the table from here on out.
I agree. Things got really interesting that day. Thanks for the call, Dan. I won't hang up on you, so that way you can listen. I answered him specifically because Dan and Aaron both, they work on this, it's now being called Unlocking Freedom events, and I just figured he had something he wanted to say to Aaron. Yes, I completely agree that things got really interesting that day because until Trump addressed the Libertarian Convention this year, libertarians were kind of just in a club to show how good their principles were, but not really being taken seriously. And it's not that I think that like the other two parties have to be the ones to take us seriously, but the thing is, he was trying to, the person who is probably going to win, I really hope he wins, one of the two people that have any chance of winning, knew he had to make a deal with the libertarians. And I think he got really quickly told like what a libertarian is, and I'd hope that like people like Vivek Ramaswamy are still in his ear and able to like help him like refine that knowledge. And he said that he considers himself a libertarian. Trump, he said, I feel like I'm almost a libertarian or something like that.
I feel like he became more sympathetic after the entirety of the government like turned against him.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, wow, it really is terrible.
Yeah. On his interview with Joe Rogan last night, he was saying that a thing they kept bringing up was how you can find a video, which I only saw for the first time like a few months ago, where he was on The View while he was running for president, but it was before he was like looking like he would win the nomination for the Republicans. Mm-hmm. He went on The View and like Whoopi Goldberg is like hugging him and like kissing him, and they're all like, our friend Donald Trump is here to talk with us. And it's just like 2 months later, it went like, you can't even be near him. He is literally Hitler. Mm-hmm. And that is just something that's so interesting in a horrible way, like interesting in a boring way. It's like, of course, it's predictable that the media would do this, but if anybody didn't realize that the media all works together and has some kind of like, has an agenda, the whole Trump situation should definitely wake you up to that. So yeah, he got into office and he was just started getting the biggest hate train of like all time.
Well, yeah, and he has had 2 assassination attempts. I heard there was like that third, maybe one. Yeah. Whatever came of that. I don't even know because there was I heard nothing about it except for like in passing. Mm-hmm. And even the actual assassination attempts. It was like, oh yeah, someone tried to assassinate Trump. Let's move on with the day now.
Yeah.
But like that happened, and they still have not turned down any of the vitriol for him, which is just inciting other people to do the same thing over and over again. So I see why he would be leaning towards libertarianism a little.
Yeah, the FBI raided his house too, like they raided Ian's house.
Yeah, no, I think that probably did change him. I mean, you know, we all get radicalized by various things. Most people come to libertarianism one way or another because of an interaction they've had or somebody close to them has had with government. So, so Trump just got a mega dose of getting red pilled or whatever you want to call it. And so I think that's why it bodes well for the pardon case. I mean, I don't know, you know, again, I don't believe in government be able to solve these solutions. I mean, at this point with $35 trillion in debt and the size of government, you know, I'm not holding out hope that he's necessarily going to be able to fix things, but he can let these people out of prison. And these are people that are able to be effective with voluntary solutions. And so that to me is why this is kind of a no-brainer. Well,
and even if he doesn't fix things, I feel like the other side is going to make things supremely worse in terms of like freedom of speech, censorship, things like that. And those things are really important to me. So I absolutely do not want them in there.
Yeah. Kamala said that it's crazy that people have the ability to say things on social media that millions of people have the potential to hear, and that they need to do something about that. Like she plans to crack down on freedom of speech and tons of other bad things that she plans, but
yeah, they keep sliding it into the conversation like, oh, well, freedom of speech doesn't apply to hateful speech. Yeah. Sure it does. Yes, of course it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's nothing good about her policies, economic policies as well, price controls and everything else. I mean, it seems like it's not well thought through, and her policies are things that have all been tried before and they've all failed. So, so yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, at this point, I have no ability to predict. I have no idea who's going to win. It certainly seems like the momentum is with Trump, but you never know how these things go.
I know. I agree. I thought for sure he was going to win in 2020 also. I didn't vote at all in 2020, but I thought he was going to win, and then he didn't. But anyways, even if these people weren't effective, like Ian is a crazy spring of energy and never getting tired of doing activism. Like, he's obviously very effective. I'm not sure what Ross would plan to do out, but he's already made a positive impact on people's lives even in prison, like teaching people with anger issues and depression who are in prison how to meditate and stuff like that. He's obviously a good person. But even if they weren't effective in any way, and obviously Roger Vere's Bitcoin Jesus, he got so many people to first hear about Bitcoin, including Ian. Yeah, including Ian. Or no, Roger Ver first heard about Bitcoin from Ian's show, but then he went on to tell so many more people about cryptocurrency. Well, even if they weren't effective activists, I would just say that definitely in the case of Ross Ulbricht, what's being done to him is so evil, and there's no other way to get him out. Sometimes for months at a time, he is in solitary confinement, and they just slide him a bologna sandwich from the little hole in the wall.
It's torture.
He's being tortured to death. Mm-hmm. And he is somebody who did a really good thing for a lot of people, and most importantly, he didn't do anything wrong. And I just think it's worth it to try to, and it's worth it to vote for Trump to try to get him out. And the thing is, a lot of people think, well, if you're a libertarian and you vote for Trump, you are responsible if he does anything bad. And I'm not responsible for anybody else's actions ever. I wouldn't be responsible if he freed Ross. I wouldn't feel like I am responsible. I did that. So why would I feel like I'm responsible and I did that if he raises tariffs? I just don't get behind that. I'm responsible for my own actions.
Yeah, and I still feel like, again, the point is that these guys are effective advocates for promoting voluntary solutions. I mean, they're very effective. That is why they're there. That is the sole reason that all of these people are there is because they are effective. If they weren't effective, they wouldn't have been targeted. The amount of resources that were spent manufacturing a fake case against Ian, or even what they've done against Roger. And actually, if you look at it, I mean, so yeah, Ian introduced Roger to Bitcoin. So if I'm the government and my goal is to shut down cryptocurrency because I want to roll out CBDCs and I want complete control, then I'm going to do my research and figure out, well, who are the most effective people at spreading Bitcoin and alternative cryptocurrencies. And so when you look at that map, it actually is Ian and Roger. So, I mean, Ian introduced Roger, but then Ian also introduced thousands of other people, or tens of thousands of other people. And then all of the work that has been done in New Hampshire in terms of onboarding merchants and ATMs. And so these two have been the most effective at promoting cryptocurrency. And they've also promoted a message of freedom and anti-violence and anti-war. And so these are the last people that should ever be targeted, but they're targeted because they were extremely effective at it. And then Ross was extremely effective at figuring out how to get adoption through a voluntary marketplace. And then if you look at Assange and you look at Snowden, I mean, they were effective at exposing the truth, exposing, in Julian's case, war crimes and corruption, and in Snowden's case, mass surveillance of American citizens. And so they exposed the truth about how the government is treating its own citizens. And so these are actually the best people that we have. I mean, if we want to have a freer future globally, then these are the 5 people that you want on your side promoting voluntary solutions. That's why I'm excited about it. I view voting for Trump as a vote for having the A-team back, promoting freedom and solutions outside of government. Nice. Whether they choose to do that or not, it's up to them. Once they achieve this, they may decide, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. Because so to your point, I mean, they should be out just because they're in because of government overreach, complete violation of process, complete violation of the Constitution, and the precedent that is set is disastrous for everyone. And let's face it, it has had a chilling effect. I mean, Ian being there are fewer merchants in New Hampshire. There are fewer ATMs, and the same thing is true with Roger. So it's had that effect, and we can't let it have that effect. So we need to get them out, but we also need to let this not have a chilling effect on spreading freedom around the world.
I also wonder if it will kind of they put people that did nothing wrong in prison in order to send a message to us. I wonder if it will send a message to them that they can't continue to do this anymore if a bunch of people call for letting those people go.
And I think I agree, and that's why I think it should happen on day one, and it should happen with all 5 of them. I think we need to send a strong message back. I mean, and I think the points to make to Trump is that we need, if he's about making America great, then we need to promote American innovation, constitutional rights, global leadership, justice reform, and that happens if you pardon these people. It sends a very strong message. So I don't think you'd see this kind of manufactured crackdown anymore if these things were reversed, because the people that work on this, the petty people that work at the FBI and the DOJ that pursue these things, they do it because if they get a win, it's basically a notch in their belt. And then what they end up doing is they end up leaving the government, and then they end up becoming defense lawyers for people like Ian and Roger. It's like this revolving door, and we need to stop that. That's an insane practice that we have, and that's exactly what happens. So I hope this does set a precedent and completely change how this functions.
I just think it is definitely true that there has been a chilling effect, and that's something even that lady Kim Iverson, that interviewed Jacob Hornberger last night. I don't think of her as somebody that's necessarily always talking about this kind of stuff or anything, but she immediately understood that. She was like, well, it sounds like if they were going this hard to try to go after him, and they didn't just want IRS charges. That's kind of the thing. It's like they had an IRS agent befriend him for a year. They could have gone with the IRS charges far earlier than they did, but but they wanted something quote unquote worse. Like they wanted something bigger than that. And even, like that lady said, she Kim Iverson, she was like, well, obviously they wanted to get him for a long time and send a chilling effect to other people that you don't sell Bitcoin. And I'm just talking about Ian right now. I know that it's what I'm most familiar with because he's my husband, but I mean, this all applies to the other people too. Like the Roger Ver, he had just written a book called Bitcoin, hijacking Bitcoin.
Hijacking
Bitcoin, not hacking Bitcoin.
There we go. Hijacking Bitcoin.
Nice. He had just written a book. It's so weird that he gets arrested like maybe 2 weeks after.
It was about 3 weeks after I interviewed him. And so I had interviewed about him because this was a really important book for me, because again, I've been trying to warn people about CBDCs. And what people are not aware of is that, many people aren't anyway, is that President Biden signed an executive order that in 2022 that authorizes the exploration of a CBDC and a whole of government crackdown on decentralized crypto. And they've been doing that. I mean, it's the DOJ, the SEC, the FTC, like 6 different federal departments have been cracking down on cryptocurrency. So this is why you're seeing, the CEO of Binance thrown in prison for 4 months. You're seeing every major exchange, the ones that are left, the few that are left, are being sued by the SEC. They're going after people that provide mixing services to try to make your cryptocurrencies private. They're throwing those people in prison. So it is a complete crackdown. And that's why I wrote my book and tried to warn people. And I'm not warning people anymore. It's now no longer warning people about what might happen in the future. I'm now just describing to people what has already happened. So, so I talk about Ian. In fact, I've got a whole series of slides about this. And no one's aware of this. The overwhelming majority of the population doesn't know that this is going on, and so it has had a chilling effect, and it is being done so that CBDCs can be rolled out. So it's been effective.
I listened to one of your interviews recently. I don't remember who you were talking to now, but I think he was from Tennessee. But you were your main idea in that video was saying that this stuff is already happening. Like the CBDC is effectively already here. And I really liked that point because I think a lot of people, even they see Roger Ver or Ian's situations and they just think that just has to do with them. That doesn't have to do with me. But the thing is, financial privacy has to do with everyone who lives in America, and probably even people who live outside of America. But specifically talking to Americans, it applies to everyone. Like if you are unable to one day have money at all without the government knowing every single transaction, then you effectively have no privacy because like there are not that many other means to do most of the activities in your life than like using money. And Bitcoin was one, or is one still, that you can use to send money without being questioned, and basically like being investigated for a crime. And it still is an option, but they're trying to go after every little area or option people have to get into it or just use it effectively.
Yeah. So anyone who believes the whole, it's because it's private thing is lacking critical thinking there, because we already have that. You could just use cash and nobody knows what you're spending it on. Nobody knows where it's going, what it's going for, anything like that. You know what I mean? So it's not because it's private. It's because it is they can use it to make money. 2, they can use it to track your spending. They don't want any competition for cash because that's their market. And 3, they don't want people to have a way to trade without the government getting involved in some way.
Yeah.
So it's not because of the privacy. That's what they always tell. It's so private that, people use it to buy drugs or like do crime with, but you can already do that with cash.
Well, I completely agree with that, but I also think that they don't want us to have more privacy. They won't want us to have, especially since cash has its limitations against crypto.
That's a bonus for them.
Well, that was a huge thing they focused on in Ian's trial was they were saying the thing about cryptocurrency is it's pseudo-anonymous. And because of that, that's how Ian was able to send this, and that's how we don't know who the people he sent it to were. Sorry, we can't help you with that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they're using that as a fear tactic for people. Like, oh, people are going to commit crimes with this, but you can already commit crimes with their currency.
I think that they also want to go against cash at some point. I just don't know how they're going to do it.
They're going to phase out cash for CBDCs and stuff like that, and say that, you have to have your little cash passport that the government is going to issue you, and everything's tied to us so they can control you more.
So here's the thing that I found when I started studying CBDCs. What I realized is we already have a CBDCs. This is one of the revelations that I've had recently, which is that 92% of our money is digital. And actually, the way money is created is the federal government issues an IOU to the Federal Reserve, and then the Federal Reserve creates money out of thin air in an Oracle database. So it is literally in an Oracle it is a central bank digital currency. The 8% that is cash, I mean, that's a pretty small percentage, and most people don't get paid in cash. Most bills that people have to pay are done electronically. And so while people could use cash, it's overwhelmingly digital already. And so when people think about CBDCs, they're worried about tracking, they're worried about programmability. And it turns out that our current monetary system, there are already 13 federal programs tracking our money. NSA bulk data collection is one. You have the IRS now working with banks using AI to monitor people's transactions. There's the Patriot Act. It is already surveilled. It can already be programmed, like with health savings accounts or flexible spending accounts for healthcare, where you get a card and you can only use it to buy certain healthcare products at certain outlets at certain times.
I'm going to have to stop you there. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up. 603-283-6160.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. In the US presidential election, campaigning heated up throughout the week as that November 5th election gets ever nearer. One poll out on Friday from the New York Times showed that they remained locked in a dead heat, with them both tied nationally. Ever since Benji Hire reports.
48% to 48%. This race is simply too close to call. Both Harris and Trump are struggling to edge a lead in the overall popular vote. This election will likely come down to the tightest of results in just a handful of states. It's there where campaigning continues today and into the weekend to try to convince those still undecided about which way they'll swing.
Also this week, the US Vice President Kamala Harris said that she believes her rival Donald Trump is a fascist. It came after his former chief of staff said the former president wanted the kind of generals that Hitler had. FSN's Mitch McCann reports.
When asked if Donald Trump was a fascist during the CNN town hall event in Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris replied, "Yes, I do. Yes, I do." It follows the Atlantic article in which John Kelly, Mr. Trump's former chief of staff, said he believed that Trump met the definition of the word. Meanwhile, the former president has seized on comments by President Biden, who said earlier this week of Trump, "We got to lock him up," before correcting himself to say he meant politically lock him up. Mr. Trump says it's proof of election interference, suggesting without evidence that the current president is behind his many legal problems.
During the week, striking workers at the US plane maker Boeing rejected a pay offer with a 35% pay rise. Around two-thirds of the members from the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers rejected the proposal, meaning that the 6-week-long strike for workers in the US remained in place. US National Security Council spokesman John Kirby this week said that North Korean troops would be considered fair game and fair targets if they were deployed to fight for Russia in Ukraine. FSN's Megumi Lim sent this report from Kiev.
Based on U.S. intelligence assessments, at least 3,000 North Korean soldiers are believed to have been dispatched to eastern Russia for training. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said it was too early to confirm whether they would enter into combat alongside Russian troops, but said it was a highly concerning probability. Pyongyang is already supplying Moscow with munitions in exchange for key military technology. And with their possible deployment to Ukraine, the North Korean military would gain critical combat experience and information about the performance of their weapons systems.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at the courage of Dominique Pellicot, the French woman who has publicly faced her husband and 50 other men in a French court where they are accused of raping her over a 9-year period starting in 2011. Madame Pellicot testified this week that even though she has been completely destroyed by her ordeal, she wants the trial to serve as a beacon for other women to come forward and confront their abusers. French journalist and broadcaster Agnès Poirier has been covering the trial that is taking place in Avignon.
There are another 8 weeks to go. Those accused will know how they are sentenced just before Christmas. And she did talk. She waived her anonymity so that the public should know, in details, horrid details, her ordeal. She's been attending every hearing. Which must have been, and she said, you need to be very strong to go through what I've been going through, because she heard the accused's lawyers saying that she consented to it.
Dominique Pellicot is 71. She says she fears that by the time her life ends, she will still not understand the motivation of her attackers. They abused her while she was comatose after her husband secretly administered her with sedatives concealed in servings of ice cream. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And a recap of the main news this week. The polls continued to show a very tight race in the US presidential election, with US Vice President Kamala Harris and her rival Donald Trump remaining in a virtual dead heat. Striking workers at US plane maker Boeing rejected a 35% pay raise offer this week, and the White House said that any North Korean troops fighting for Russia in Ukraine would be considered fair targets. And that's the Week in Review. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
From that romantic summer evening in 1924 when Pol Pot was conceived, to the first time someone figured out how to eat a pineapple without ripping their mouth to shreds. This week in history, 1692, 5 citizens were executed after being convicted during the Salem witch trials. all while dozens of witches, warlocks, and sorcerers stood by and watched the wrongly accused take the rap for them, while the perfectly normal humans charged with witchcraft were publicly hung and dragged to their unmarked graves. The numerous Salem citizens that did spend their evenings casting spells and awakening the dead merely lowered their heads as their friends and neighbors were burned at the stake.
Historical records have indicated that as many as 35% of the people in Salem were actually witches and warlocks. In fact, the executioner himself was a well-known necromancer who, after hanging the wrongly accused witches, reanimated their dead bodies and apologized before casting them into the eternal fires of hell.
This is the Onion News Network.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. Call in with whatever is on your mind. And not your keys, not your Bitcoin is a lesson that too many people have learned the hard way. It's always best to get your crypto into a wallet that you control, but not all wallets are equal. Many of our hosts have been using Edge Wallet for years to manage crypto, and there just aren't many wallets to compare. Featuring a unique login system that makes it easier for you to access your crypto from multiple devices, Edge is designed to be user-friendly. In a space that can be notoriously difficult for non-tech people, Edge is a valuable tool for novices and experts alike. You can learn more at edge.app, which features a link at the top for those who wish to learn more about crypto and wallets. That's Edge Wallet. Thank you so much for sponsoring Free Talk Live. That's edge.app. Thank you so much again for sponsoring Free Talk Live for $1,500 a month. And again, to learn more, visit edge.app. That's EDGE, if you can't understand what I'm saying there. And with you on Free Talk Live, you've got me, Bonnie.
And Lori.
And we also have Aaron Day here. Aaron, we have talked in the last couple hours about many things, including the CBDC, the central bank digital currency that they want to bring out. And you were saying that it's already here. And I feel like you had a little more to say about that at the last segment.
Yeah, so it is already here. So our money is already digital. It's already, the Federal Reserve actually runs on an Oracle database. It can already be tracked. It can already be programmed. It really, at this point, is just about the level of tyranny. So I've actually I wrote an article at the Brownstone Institute about this, a tyranny index. And the ultimate end game of this is a single global digital currency that is backed by energy credits and tied to a social credit system that's basically the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals, where cash is banned and crypto is banned. So that's essentially the worst form of CBDC tyranny. But what we have right now is already a digital currency, and it's already pretty bad. So I think what most people think about as a CBDC, we already have. Most people don't realize how much our money is already tracked and how much it can already be programmed. And there are businesses all over the country that have been canceled. We had Operation Choke Point, where whether you're a gun store or a variety of different merchant categories, you were basically denied banking services. And this is going on with cryptocurrency companies as well. So there's already censorship going on, already programmability. But I wanted to say one other thing, which is that, Bitcoin really isn't private. And I mean, I think Ian and Roger and Ross all know this.
It's pseudo-anonymous.
It's pseudo, but for the most part, most people can be tracked. And now they're using chain analysis. And so most people buy this through a centralized exchange. Or now even worse, they don't never even own it through a centralized exchange. They buy it through like a BlackRock ETF. So most of the Bitcoin can be tracked at this point. And most new people that are coming on board, I mean, unless you're mining it and then you've never actually touched an exchange or third-party service, for most people, their Bitcoin can be tracked. One of the things that Roger was working on, and in fact, the last talk that he gave before he was arrested, is he's been promoting Xano, which is a privacy coin like Monero, but in addition to being a private cryptocurrency that you can use, you can also tokenize your other assets and trade those as well. So you could tokenize stocks, bonds, in the future, real estate, basically anything. Money only makes up 5% of global assets, and everything is going to be tokenized eventually. One of the things that Xano is going to be able to do, it's going to be able to actually make Bitcoin and Ethereum and Bitcoin Cash private as well. So you'll actually be able to basically tokenize your Bitcoin and make it private.
Oh, cool.
So that is the key moving forward, is that we need privacy, because since Bitcoin can be tracked, they can essentially whitelist or blacklist very different Bitcoins, which means Bitcoin's not fungible because one is not the same as another. So this is a real problem that people are not aware of or paying attention to. So to me, the future is going to be in self-custody privacy coins. That's going to be the way out of it. So that's what I actually teach in my workshops at this point. And this has been a shift for me, but even in the last 120 days, I've moved solely into privacy coins because it's very easy now. I mean, even the major exchanges, Coinbase is also working with the IRS using AI to track people. So if you add this chain analysis plus the fact that the large exchanges are essentially being forced to report to the government, it means that there are very few people that are engaging in peer-to-peer crypto transactions right now that aren't able to be traced and tracked.
I am really bad recently because it hasn't been like the topic every single show at calling cryptocurrency just Bitcoin. So yeah, Bitcoin is even less private than others. And if you want complete privacy, you can use Monero. Do you have any problems with Monero or have any
No, I
issues
like
with
Monero and Xano. I like them both. It turns out that the lead developer behind Xano worked on the CryptoNote, which is the technology behind Monero. He actually worked with the creator of Monero. He knows who the creator of Monero is.
Whoa.
This is another guy he doesn't go by his real name, and he's elusive and people don't know who he is, but the lead developer of Xano does, and in fact he gets together with him a couple times a year, knows who he is. So the people behind Xano are OGs in the crypto space and also in privacy with Monero. So
nice.
That's why I like it. But yeah, I like Monero as well. I'm not a maximalist of any kind. You can't be. You have to use whatever works. And I also use gold and silver as well. And in fact, one of the things I'm working on right now is a gold-backed privacy coin. So imagine if you had a coin that had the privacy of Monero, but was actually backed by gold that you could redeem for physical gold.
That's awesome.
To me, that's an interesting solution that solves a lot of problems, because one of the things that I found when I try to onboard merchants, a lot of merchants are skeptical about crypto because of the volatility of the price. And so if you actually had something that was that had the elements of cryptocurrency, including privacy, but that was backed by gold, that would actually remove a barrier to merchant adoption.
Sorry, my dog is barking right now. I tried to mute myself for parts there, but I don't know why he's barking. Earlier today, there were Harris supporters, and I could see them on my camera. I was like, they knocked on my door, and I like my dog, Coconut, immediately goes to the door to start barking at them because somebody's knocking. That's what he does. He just goes to the door and barks when somebody is knocking. And I just was like, stop it, because I didn't know who was at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I pull up my cameras and I'm looking at them. I see Harris on their clipboards, and there's two people, and they look so much like just the typical New England Democrats too. And the lady nearest to the door knocked 3 times total, and then at one point was like leaning into the door that has a window on it. I was like, seriously, like, if someone doesn't want to answer, you have no right to like try to look in their window to see if they're really there. Like, if someone doesn't want to answer, they just don't want to answer. Sorry, I had muted you when he was barking.
You said they came back a bunch of times or something like that?
They didn't come back. She just knocked 3 times, like, total. Like, within, like, she was on my porch for, like, 2 minutes. And every time, like, 30 seconds would go by after knocking, she just, like, knock again. It's like, at some point, like, clearly I just don't want to come to the door. It's so annoying. And they left a thing on the front door that says Harris, and I threw it away. Kind of glad they left it, because they wasted one on me.
I would have been like, no thank you, immediately, because they'll probably come back.
This is actually the second time a Harris person has come to my door, but the last time I was just on the side of my house, like I was outside in my grass, and she comes up and she was like, she said that in such a weird way. She said, "Hi, are you interested in voting?" Something like that. And I was like, well, I'm registered if that's what you mean. She's like, I'm here for Harris. And I was like, oh, well, sorry.
She's not here.
Yeah. She didn't say that part like that. You know, she was like, I'm campaigning for Harris or whatever. And I was like, yeah, sorry, I'm just not interested. And then her like attitude and everything changed so hardcore. And she was like, obviously like annoyed that I'm not voting for Harris. It's like these people are, oh my God, like not going to convince anyone of anything.
They're unhinged.
Yeah.
So you can't push back at all.
In New England, it's like the worst place to live if you hate people knocking on your doors for political stuff, which I don't normally just like, I don't treat them badly. I used to have that as a job, but if I just stay still and am just trying to not answer, like when I was a door knocker, I would like knock once. And if they didn't answer, well, good, I just get to leave my little door hanging thing because no one's going to get convinced just by you standing on their front door to vote for whatever.
I don't like people knocking on my door at all. At all. I don't, if I know you, if I don't know you, like, unless I have specifically been like, come to my house, don't knock on my door.
Oh, like
for
surprise,
anything.
for as a like out of
for anything
scheduled.
Because I'll be like, no.
It does annoy me, but I also try to be like kind to them, but I don't think it's unkind to just not want to answer. Well,
I mean, I don't think it's being very kind to just knock on people's door and try to demand time out of them.
That's what it like seemed like at the point that you're knocking 3 times and like staring into my window and oh my God, just being annoying. So speaking of woke people, this is from New York Post, but also I saw it many other places. I'm noticing that I chose the one from New York Post, which is one of the newspapers that people don't think of too highly, but I saw this many other places. It says a woke doc refused to publish a $10 million trans kid study that showed puberty blockers didn't help mental health.
I saw that.
So this is like so huge, not just for people who care about like trans kids or puberty blockers for kids, but just for people who want to trust science in general, like people who want to like learn the truth about something. Like, I want to know if cherries are good for me. I'm going to look at the literature online. For all you know, doctors purposely didn't publish certain studies about cherries and how good they are for you because, or if they're poisonous for you because, well, I work for a cherry jelly company, so I'm not going to publish this finding.
The wildest part is that it's taxpayer funded, this research. And so they're like, okay, so I took all this money in government grants to do this study, but it doesn't align with my personal wants for how it's going to come out, so I'm just not going to publish it.
Yep, that is crazy. And it was $10 million of taxpayer funds. It says, a prominent doctor and trans rights activist admitted she deliberately withheld publication of a $10 million taxpayer-funded study on the effect of puberty blockers on American children after finding no evidence that they improve patients' mental health. And so the thing is, this is what they tell parents when a parent takes their kid to the hospital or a psychiatrist because the kid tells them they're trans, or even like when they're like a really young kid and they just say they want to wear dresses and stuff. Well, this is what the doctors will tell the parents. The doctors tell them like when they get about 11 or 12 years old, they should go on puberty blockers because if they don't, they will start to go through normal male puberty if they're born male. Or
their body will do the thing that it was designed to do, and we can't have that.
And the thing that the doctors tell them and psychiatrists tell them is that, well, the kids will be depressed and want to kill themselves if you don't put them on these things. So they're always phrasing it as like you are saving your kid's life by making this decision to put them on puberty blockers. So when
I would say that it's more harmful in both directions to put them on puberty blockers, because so if you stop a kid from going through puberty, they're not like things are not going to grow, right? Mm-hmm. So if they decide that they aren't going to transition, they're not going to be developed like an adult human. Mm-hmm. And if they decide they want to transition, they're not going to be developed enough like an adult human to get reassignment surgery. There's not going to be enough
like that is
anything there. There's not going to be enough material to work with to make a new
if it's
set
male
of genitals
to female, though.
If it's male to female,
yeah, I could see that, and I've always wondered about that, like how does that work? But the thing is, I guess they're able to make it work because I Am Jazz, that person, Jazz Jennings, there we go. The person on TLC, I think it is, that was trans since they were a 3-year-old, and their parents have filmed this whole thing. And that's like a huge place where a lot of people have learned how the doctors treat this subject.
Yeah, all the people that are like, oh, it doesn't happen to kids.
Yeah. Well, she was put on puberty blockers at 11 or 12. I don't remember exactly. And got the reassignment surgery at 17. So, I mean, I don't understand anyone who goes through this experimental surgery.
Mm-hmm. There are ways they can do it if you end up not developing. They take a part of the colon.
Yes, I've heard that.
And turn it into a vagina. But that brings up different problems for you because that's not what that's intended for.
Yep. I've heard stuff about like a bad discharge that comes out whenever they use it from the colon. So I have heard of that.
I mean, I would imagine so. Like that's a whole different part of the body. It's not like you're like if you're using a penis to turn it into a vagina, right? That is, those things are made from the same basic biological materials. In the beginning, they're just developed in a different way. Mm-hmm. But if you're using a whole different body part, it's not going to function right. Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, this entire thing is, I think psychiatry is a death cult. And actually, the more you study all of this, including public health, I mean, this is all by design, and it's not to improve anybody's health. It's actually to push depopulation. And you know, that seems controversial to say, but when you study the history of psychiatry, the history of psychology, it's not about improving humans. It's about socially engineering, and biologically engineering people. And so it's, when you start looking at the gender reassignment stuff, I mean, these psychiatrists and psychologists are paid to promote these things. The lifetime value of a customer that goes through gender reassignment is massive. I mean, you're talking about $1 million plus. And so it's actually an outrage that this is going on. And this is why I always say, well, when I ran for president, you know, my whole pitch was, you don't have to vote for me. You just need to stop complying, and you need to boycott public health. When you look at these psychiatry drugs, I mean, not even related to puberty blockers, but things like depression, I mean, they've been manipulating the data on that as well by not taking long-term studies, by just looking at how it works over like a 90-day time period. But if you actually look at how these drugs work over a 12-month or 24-month time period, they actually don't work at all. They make things worse. And it's almost impossible to get off of drug antidepressants and those types of medications. And so, we really should be boycotting public health. I mean, at this point, they really do not have a pro-human agenda at all.
I haven't specifically looked into the origins of psychology and found that they have a depopulation agenda, but tons of other places have an origin in depopulation, like birth control. I mean, it might seem kind of obvious. It might seem kind of obvious that if you want to control people, be able to stop people from being able to give or get pregnant, then maybe you might be part of a eugenics crowd. But it's not obvious to everyone, because a lot of people think, no, that's just something that came around because women wanted control of their bodies. Well, the people who ended up getting birth control made, and they spent a long time getting to the right people and doctors to find the right things and fund the right things. They were open eugenicists.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't just people who cared about women.
Yeah, and it's not like eugenics in general. It's like class eugenics.
Yeah, those people were.
Yeah, they wanted to reduce the population of poor or minority groups specifically.
And it's like, I feel like people understand that is bad in many different situations, and then suddenly just like turn a blind eye to it when it's about abortion and about birth control. Because just last night, I'm going to try to pull up the name of this place, but just last night I was watching a video, and this lady has like tons of followers. She's a YouTuber, and her name is like Stephanie Harlow. And I watched a video last night of her talking about the horrors of Letchworth Village. And there are tons of stories about asylums, and people understand, like, wow, it's so awful that the person who started Letchworth Village, it wasn't actually the guy he's named after, so, but whatever. The person who started it as an asylum outright said that he wants to be able to get all of the infirm and feeble-minded people into an asylum, give them a nice place to stay. It didn't end up that way. But also get them out of society so that way they don't continue to breed. And then that way he was saying we would cure humanity from the, like plague, is what he said, of, ever having other people like this if we could just stop them from breeding. I don't really think that's how that works, but people understand that's obviously wrong. People are talking, like, you can find YouTube videos of people like discussing, oh, this was an asylum, this is a haunted asylum, and here's the history of it. Oh, it's so wrong what they were doing to these people.
So I'm like I lean slightly eugenicist-y, but not like, I don't want people to be forced sterilized or manipulated or anything like that. I think that people should self-select, though. I think you should self-select yourself out of the gene pool if you are going to pass on horrible things to your offspring.
The other thing about it, though, is that a lot of stuff is like environmental, that they'll find out. Like, it's not just genes. Like,
some things are, though.
But
like,
nothing is just genes.
There's this thing called fatal familial insomnia, where you just one day can't go back to sleep ever again and you die. And these people have kids. They have children, and then their children end up getting it, and and it's just because it's directly related to your genetics passed down through your family.
So these people haven't done it yet, but they're going to die?
Yes.
Like, so it seems like they lived long enough to get to childbearing age.
I don't think I would put that upon my kids. If I had something like this, I would just not have kids, because I don't want to make that choice for somebody that one day you're just never going to go to sleep again and you're going to go insane and die.
Well, you don't get to be in control of what your genes are. So I'm not saying that like you shouldn't have the right to choose not to, but I also don't like blame those people for wanting to have kids.
But that this is a thing that's passed down through your family.
But it's literally not passed down to like every single person. Nothing is. There's nothing that you absolutely that they will get this or that thing. Like, that works with animals but not humans. Like, you can't absolutely know.
Well, you can know if it's a dominant gene that actually causes it, but usually you need, for a lot of these conditions, you need to have, both parents need to pass along.
Even like Down syndrome, you can have normal kids. All right, it's Free Talk Live. More coming up.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Tired of the ever-inflating US dollar? You can live your life on Dash instead with some handy websites. BitRefill.com has been accepting Dash for years and has a ton of big-name retailers and brands, including grocers, gas stations, phone refills, Amazon, and even prepaid MasterCards. Plus, many of their gift cards are available at a discount. But what about paying your bills? Spritz.finance can do that, and they can send dollars to your bank account in case you still need those for some reason. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at Dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit Dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. In the US presidential election, campaigning heated up throughout the week as that November 5th election gets ever nearer. One poll out on Friday from the New York Times showed that they remain locked in a dead heat, with them both tied nationally. Eversense Benji Hire reports.
48% to 48%. This race is simply too close to call. Both Harris and Trump are struggling to edge a lead in the overall popular vote. This election will likely come down to the tightest of results in just a handful of states. It's there where campaigning continues today and into the weekend to try to convince those still undecided about which way they'll swing.
Also this week, the US Vice President Kamala Harris said that she believes her rival Donald Trump is a fascist. It came after his former chief of staff said the former president wanted the kind of generals that Hitler had. Eversense Mitch McCann reports.
When asked if Donald Trump was a fascist during the CNN town hall event in Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris replied, "Yes, I do. Yes, I do." It follows the Atlantic article in which John Kelly, Mr. Trump's former chief of staff, said he believed that Trump met the definition of the word. Meanwhile, the former president has seized on comments by President Biden, who said earlier this week of Trump, "We got to lock him up," before correcting himself to say he meant politically lock him up. Mr. Trump says it's proof of election interference, suggesting without evidence that the current president is behind his many legal problems. Mitch McCann, New York.
During the week, striking workers at the US plane maker Boeing rejected a pay offer with a 35% pay rise. Around two-thirds of the members from the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers rejected the proposal, meaning that the 6-week-long strike for workers in the US remained in place. US National Security Council spokesman John Kirby this week said that North Korean troops would be considered fair game and fair targets if they were deployed to fight for Russia in Ukraine. Eversense Megumi Lim sent this report from Kiev.
Based on U.S. intelligence assessments, at least 3,000 North Korean soldiers are believed to have been dispatched to eastern Russia for training. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said it was too early to confirm whether they would enter into combat alongside Russian troops, but said it was a highly concerning probability. Pyongyang is already supplying Moscow with munitions in exchange for key military technology. And with their possible deployment to Ukraine, the North Korean military would gain critical combat experience and information about the performance of their weapons systems.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. And I'd like to thank our amplifiers, and specifically Dodger, for being an amplifier with us here at Free Talk Live. That means that Dodger went to amps.freetalklive.com and signed up to support the show. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promotes, and Support. Thanks to Dodger and everyone who supports us. Again, that's amps.freetalklive.com if you'd like to check out the perks and benefits of becoming an amplifier. In the studio on Free Talk Live with you tonight, you've got me
and Lori.
Sorry. And then we also have Aaron Day on the show with us. Aaron, by the way, do you have a website people can go to?
You can go to daylightfreedom.org. And then I think people should also go to, freeiannow.org and freerogernow.org and fill out the petitions, because these petitions actually work. I mean, it actually had a huge impact, and it's part of the reason that Trump came out and said he would commute Ross's sentence. So it really does have an impact.
Wow. Let's go to the phones. We have Sarah in New Mexico. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Yes, I just found out like Jane Fonda is actually contributing campaign donations to House District 31 Democratic candidate within our
James
state.
Bond. Sorry, James Bond.
Jane Fonda, you know the actress?
Jane Fonda. Oh, I was like, which
Well,
James
she's
Bond?
good. Yeah. Well, we know that she's always been an environmentalist and she has been a Democrat. But my question was, why, out of all the campaigns to contribute, why she is contributing to House District 31 that affects only state of New Mexico, that's up in the roundhouse. It's not a national, like a senator or anything like that. So they've convinced her, the environmental people have convinced her that this is an important race that she's got to sponsor.
She lives in New Mexico.
She does?
Yeah.
I thought she was Californian.
She lives in Santa Fe.
A lot of celebrities do have
she
like
does.
more than one house. Like Kanye West lives in Austin, but he also lives everywhere else, or wherever else he wants.
Okay, that makes sense. She lives in our state, but she's involved with our state government. But this is the Albuquerque area. So what it is okay. So where the Sea of the Blue, that's one area in the Northeast Heights has always been Republican. So that's the one area in this county that we got to bump off, the Republican. That's why she's willing to pump the money there. But I don't know how they're going to vote them out because, when they come out to vote, it might be at the most 3,500 that's going to come out to vote at all from that district. And then margin to win might be about 80, 90 votes. So, but the thing is, why is it so important to win that little seat, So who they got for Republican candidate was, I think Eleanor Chavez. What happened was that her son got killed by a gunshot after a party, like some kind of party.
Oh my God.
And what she's running on is that the Republicans are strict and tough on criminals that involve guns. So that's why she is running on a Republican ticket. But she is a Latina and she is a minority. And so that's why she's appealing to trying to have the Democrats cross over to the Republican side. So then she exposed that the Democratic side is funded by Jane Fonda, big money person, an actress. But I thought Jane Fonda was a Californian.
I don't know. Maybe she has a house in both places. I don't know like anything about her. I wouldn't know if she's like really rich or anything. Like I don't really know what movies she's in, honestly. But I know exactly who you're talking about. Just don't know anything about her.
I hate how reductive and simple everything has gotten to the point where you're like, yeah, some people that I'm related to came from this certain space, and so now everybody should support me for whatever ideas I have.
Yeah, there was actually this video, and thanks for the call, Sarah. There was this video I saw the other day. There's this girl, she looks black or mixed, like black and white or something like that, and that's only important because of her conversation she always has about it. So there's this, I have never watched this actual show, but there's always clips of it on Twitter. And there's this show where there's like somebody kind of famous for things like debating, like Ben Shapiro. Mm-hmm. And they sit in a chair, and then there's people...
Oh, I know this show. I forget what it's called, though.
Yeah, I actually don't know what it's called at all, but there's people sitting around, and they have red flags in their hand. I don't know what those are supposed to mean, but anyways, like...
It's like, so if the debate is not going well, you can vote the person off. So, like, if everybody puts their flags up, then that person has to move so someone else can take their spot.
Interesting. I didn't know if the people raising their flags were supporting or not supporting her. So they like run to the middle and try to be the first one to the chair to debate the person. Like, and there's this girl who I always see clips of her on there, and she's like so bad. Like, she seems to me to be losing, and then I see the person who tweeted it is saying like, wow, I love her. She totally beat him. And it's like, what? But anyways, she's always talking about race, and she was arguing with Ben Shapiro saying that she is experiencing taxation without representation because there aren't enough black female people in Congress and because there has never been one in as a president.
It doesn't matter. I saw that too, and she was telling Ben Shapiro that being Jewish isn't anything other than a religion.
Exactly. That was so dumb. But the thing about it is she was basically arguing with him that exactly what I just said, and that she was saying, well, you naturally care more, have more empathy for people that look like you.
It's people who look like me doesn't mean that they're having the same life experience as me. Like, do these people who are living in like the hood and the projects and stuff think that Kamala Harris can relate to their lives? Because it's not true.
Yeah, she's tried to lie a lot about how her life upbringing was, but even in the official, her official story.
I was raised in a middle class family.
Yeah. It was like a huge mansion.
And then witch cackle.
But it did feel like Ben Shapiro could have done a lot better because he was just like kind of caught up on her calling him white. But he should have said just because there are people in Congress that are even Jewish, that doesn't mean they represent him more than they represent anyone else if they don't think anything like him. And that's how I feel about that's how I've always felt about other white people. Like in America, for the most part, there isn't like a strong feeling of cultural unity among like me and other white people.
I'll have to remember that next time me and you have a disagreement on the air. I'll have to be like, Bonnie's white and she's got brown hair and we're both women. I guess I should just agree with her.
Yeah, exactly.
She represents me now.
It's so dumb of an argument, but
it's racist.
Okay. I was going to say, why did we bring this up? Is because Sarah was saying, Sarah does that all the time. It's like actually pretty racist. She's always saying and I just don't understand why this person's a Republican because she's a Latino or
they're
whatever.
Black and they're voting for Trump. How could they do that?
Yeah, she literally can't wrap her mind around that.
It's so crazy. That is racist.
Yeah, and Sarah's not Latino or Black. She said she's like white and Asian. But just pointing that out because she brought up the topic.
That's interesting. I always imagined that she was Mexican.
Oh, yeah, no, she said that her great-grandma or grandma was North Korean. And we were like, doesn't your grandma hate you for becoming a communist? And she was like, yeah, I kind of annoyed her, but I was like, wow. And she was like saying, my grandma, I guess it was, not her great-grandma, was always trying to convince me that communism was like bad. You should totally bring this up with Sarah on there one day. She was like, my grandma was always trying to convince me that communism is bad because like she lived through it, but
what does she know?
Yeah, she was like, yeah, but it was different because they put tariffs on North Korea or whatever.
What does she know? She only lived through it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know how long North Korea has been like locked down. So I feel like we need to question Sarah more about that. It looks like we have another caller on the line, probably Skeeter. Skeeter, what's on your mind?
I bet not much.
He's not muted. Oh, are you there? Hi, caller. Who's this?
This is John from San Antonio.
Oh, it's not Skeeter.
I'm so sorry. I called you Skeeter because sometimes the thing that if it just says San Antonio, I think it's this guy named Skeeter who calls. So, John, what is on your mind?
That's fine. Okay, so I don't know. I like that you were talking about the race issue because I think that is a thing. Like as a minority, like quote unquote, I think that is a thing that happens that isn't addressed enough. Like there is actual oppression, and it is like overlooked. What is it called? I called because I wanted to talk about a technology that's actually emerging, and I was one of the forefront pioneers of this thing. Like it is fungal technology.
Fungal, with like a fungus, like a mushroom?
Yes.
That's so cool.
Mushroom robots. Mushroom robots is a thing that exists in 2024.
Mushroom
robots? It just came into existence. Yes, last month.
What can they do?
It came in, well, since the 2000s, the early 2000s, we've been using biological organisms like neurons to process digital data. Mm-hmm. And just recently, scientists decided to connect fungus or mycelium to the same electrodes that they were attaching the brain neurons to. And they found out, hey, this is doing the exact same thing that the brain neurons are doing. It's processing data. We could get this to process data, and we don't have to worry about having it in a very specialized conditions, because neurons are very sensitive. If
Yeah,
you don't have neurons in a specific condition, they're going to die. With fungus, you could throw literal shit at the fungus,
Oh, sorry,
and
you
it will
can't
start using
cuss
that.
you can't cuss on the air, but
Oh, my bad.
I did dump
I'm
it.
sorry.
If you are able to just keep it FCC friendly, then
Okay.
I'm really
Sorry.
interested in this call. Yeah, sorry. I should
Okay.
remind most new callers, but I just thought you were a different guy when you first answered. I'm really glad you're not, Skeeter, and that you called to tell us about this, because this is really fascinating.
Yeah, so I was the forefront creator in this. Back in 2013, I was one of the initial people to say, hey guys, I know we're using brain cells, but we need to use neurons. It literally can process data. It's actually getting different forms of materials in the ground, like radioactive waste, different pollutants like heavy metals and plastics. It's getting all this stuff and turning it into usable resources for itself.
Wow.
If we could utilize this for processing data, we would have basically a bioorganic nanotechnology. And it's happening. Now in 2024, every research lab around the world is working on fungal technology.
Wow. I wonder if they will be able to do things better than other, like, biological technology, because I know that right now doctors are able to, like, try to recreate parts of the inner ear so that way deaf people can hear, but it's like it's just not there yet to be like, oh, it's just the same as regular hearing. I wonder if fungus will do better than, like, biological cells.
So on the one hand, it's extremely exciting, all of these technological advancements, but also I feel very hesitant about biological computers, because how do you rein that in once you release it?
There is no stopping it.
Yeah.
There is no stopping it. Once it takes over, it's going to do its thing. And if anything, humanity needs a change. Like, humans are been in control too long, and there needs to be something else taking charge of this world.
Do the people who are doing this get to decide for everybody else that there needs to be something else to take over?
No, they don't decide. They're gonna try
They
to make
did
a
decide.
technology.
Well, I mean, you are decide if you do something like this and it is released to replicate on its own, because it's a biological computer, right? So it can spread. If you release something like that, you are deciding for everyone.
Well, they don't have control is the thing. Like,
Exactly.
they can decide to create a thing, but it doesn't mean to have any control over the situation.
Well, right now, what can they do? Because I assume it's not literally able to walk and talk and do everything. What are they able to do with fungal biotechnology right now?
Okay, right now they just connected mycelium to a circuit board, so they had it control a we call a soft robot, and basically it's being used as the brain for the brain for the robot at the moment. It has the potential to be used for generating and storing electricity, the same way a potato battery works. If you hook up the right circuit to a potato, you will start getting a current from the potato. You could do something similar to the fungi. If you hook up the right circuit to the fungi, you could harness some electricity from that.
So
Researchers are go ahead.
Oh, so, well, you probably have something way more important to ask. I was going to say, is this going to be like famously that this started in San Antonio? Are you at like UTSA or something? No. Oh, that would be awesome. I'm from there.
No. This is what I'm saying. This is a part of the whole bio-piracy thing that happens when it comes to certain cultures, certain people from certain backgrounds trying to contribute to scientific endeavors. It doesn't happen. How many Native American inventors have you ever heard of throughout history?
I don't really know any.
Name me one, please.
No, I really don't
exactly.
think I know any.
And that's just and that's a strategical thing that happens. What is biopiracy? Do you know what biopiracy means?
No, not biopiracy.
That's where a whole organism's genetic fucking.
Oh, you
I said a bad word. I said a bad word.
Sorry,
No.
maybe you can call in tomorrow, caller. I'm interested in the topic. I don't really understand how that really answered the question, but I can't just keep dumping, especially towards the end of the call or end of the segment like that. You got to be really conscious of being FCC friendly on the show.
It's hard when when that's your normal speech pattern and you are on the air and you're not practiced in it.
I wanted to know if it was going to be like, oh, we just discovered this in my laboratory somewhere in San Antonio, and it was going to be like famously started there, but I feel like he misunderstood my question. I don't know. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. If you'd like to get in on the conversation with us, talk about whatever's on your mind. But I did want to return to this article we were talking about because it's another situation that is an important part of science, really. The fact that people rely so heavily on studies, and honestly, it's like I feel like there's like balance in everything in life, and like you just anytime you're looking into or talking about anything, you just learn that there's like a balance there. And I often talk about like, oh well, this study showed this, and I think about that throughout my life, but then I'm very skeptical at the same time of like the fact that like, yeah, but like it could be different for me. So like I will not use it as like end all be all for evidence of something, or it could be different for the next person. Like people are so different with the way that they react with like foods and stuff. And that's really the main like thing I'm talking about when I'm looking at studies.
Well, another thing to think about with studies is like who's funding it? Who's funding the study? Who's doing the study? What are their intentions? Do they have a plan in mind already before they even start this? And they're going to skew their results. So, I mean, everyone has an agenda, even you, like every single person in their life has their own agenda in life. And these researchers are no different. So you should never blindly just read something and be like, well, the science is settled.
And the worst thing to me is when, you were talking to somebody about some subject and they just send you, well, this study said this, and there's literally other studies saying the opposite of what they sent you. It's like, well, what are you trying to, like, that's not proof.
But that's not the one that I read.
Yeah, exactly. But it looks like we have another caller on the line. Unscreened caller, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, good evening. Hi. I want to talk about pollution.
Okay.
The climate change, the climate crisis that we're in has been creeping up on us. And Carl Sagan back in 1985 went to Congress to try to warn us about this. And nobody's been really paying attention. And now we're getting extreme weather, and what's causing all this heat is the greenhouse effect, and it comes from burning fossil fuels. So what I see that really bothers me is people will get in their car, start their car, and then play on their phone, rather than doing it the other way around.
Wait.
And so they're just wasting fuel.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So like if somebody wants to get into their car and then do something on their phone, like you're saying they shouldn't like stand with the car on. I can't think of the other, like stay parked with the car on and running.
Yeah, exactly. So by doing it, if you reverse that process, get in your car, play on your phone, and when you're all done and ready to take off, then you turn your engine on. If everybody were to do that, we could cut our pollution in half.
Okay, but really, the big polluters are not the person sitting in their car playing on their phone. It's giant corporations.
That's a good point. Another thing is I really am skeptical of that that thought that it would cut our pollution in half, because I don't even know who to quote or anything, but I've heard people saying even if like all of China stopped doing the things that pollute things, it wouldn't like reverse the rates of these things people have mapped out, like, I don't know, in the future, like, oh, it's going to be this much hotter. They say that like if all of China did that for a week, it wouldn't even be a dent in the water. So whenever I first read that, and I was being open-minded and wanting to start like recycling and stuff like that, so I was looking into it. Whenever I saw that, I was like, I feel like there's like literally no point in me trying to be more eco-friendly if
Yeah, I agree with you there. I've heard stories about our recycling efforts as just a big ruse from the plastic companies and everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, hey, everybody drink out of paper straws. Meanwhile, we're going to have entire tankers spill oil into the ocean and trains full of chemicals blow up and burn off fumes into the sky and all of this stuff. And we'll just keep doing things the way that we've been doing them because it keeps happening.
And there was that guy that put a air tag on his recycling, and it sat in a warehouse for a long time instead of doing anything to be recycled.
Yeah, a lot of recycling places just throw it into the regular trash.
Yep.
Or ship it out into the middle of the ocean.
It doesn't. Yeah. There's a giant island out there the size of Texas. It's a big plastic heap, and they're worried about that.
So I'm pretty sure sitting in your car, playing on your phone, is not going to do that much damage.
There's millions of cars out there, and everybody has the same habit of getting in their car, starting it, and then playing on their phone before they ever put it in gear and take off and go to their destination.
I think most people actually don't do that.
Well, my thing is, I think he's saying playing on your phone, but I technically do it, but I'm not playing on my phone. Oh, sorry, I accidentally answered another caller. I'm not playing on my phone, like putting in directions or something like that. It's just that I don't really think that my car being on actually affects the environment. And the other thing is, like, he says it would half our pollution, but there's way more than just cars. There's like all the plastic seems like a way bigger deal. It's Free Talk Live, more coming up. Don't go anywhere. 603-283-6160. We've had some interesting calls tonight.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. In the US presidential election, campaigning heated up throughout the week as that November 5th election gets ever nearer. One poll out on Friday from the New York Times showed that they remain locked in a dead heat, with them both tied nationally. FSN's Benji Hire reports.
48% to 48%. This race is simply too close to call. Both Harris and Trump are struggling to edge a lead in the overall popular vote. This election will likely come down to the tightest of results in just a handful of states. It's there where campaigning continues today and into the weekend to try to convince those still undecided about which way they'll swing.
Also this week, the US Vice President Kamala Harris said that she believes her rival Donald Trump is a fascist. It came after his former chief of staff said the former president wanted the kind of generals that Hitler had. FSN's Mitch McCann reports.
When asked if Donald Trump was a fascist during the CNN town hall event in Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris replied, "Yes, I do. Yes, I do." It follows the Atlantic article in which John Kelly, Mr. Trump's former chief of staff, said he believed that Trump met the definition of the word. Meanwhile, the former president has seized on comments by President Biden, who said earlier this week of Trump, "We got to lock him up," before correcting himself to say he meant politically lock him up. Mr. Trump says it's proof of election interference, suggesting without evidence that the current president is behind his many legal problems.
During the week, striking workers at the US plane maker Boeing rejected a pay offer with a 35% pay rise. Around two-thirds of the members from the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers rejected the proposal, meaning that the 6-week-long strike for workers in the US remained in place. US National Security Council spokesman John Kirby this week said that North Korean troops would be considered fair game and fair targets if they were deployed to fight for Russia in Ukraine. FSN's Megumi Lim sent this report from Kiev.
Based on U.S. intelligence assessments, at least 3,000 North Korean soldiers are believed to have been dispatched to eastern Russia for training. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said it was too early to confirm whether they would enter into combat alongside Russian troops, but said it was a highly concerning probability. Pyongyang is already supplying Moscow with munitions in exchange for key military technology. And with their possible deployment to Ukraine, the North Korean military would gain critical combat experience and information about the performance of their weapons systems.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at the courage of Dominique Pellicot, the French woman who has publicly faced her husband and 50 other men in a French court where they are accused of raping her over a 9-year period starting in 2011. Madame Pellicot testified this week that even though she has been completely destroyed by her ordeal, she wants the trial to serve as a beacon for other women to come forward and confront their abusers. French journalist and broadcaster Agnès Poirier has been covering the trial that is taking place in Avignon.
There are another 8 weeks to go. Those accused will know how they are sentenced just before Christmas. And she did talk. She waived her anonymity so that the public should know, in details, horrid details, her ordeal. She's been attending every hearing. Which must have been, and she said, you need to be very strong to go through what I've been going through, because she heard the accused's lawyers saying that she consented to it.
Dominique Pellicot is 71. She says she fears that by the time her life ends, she will still not understand the motivation of her attackers. They abused her while she was comatose after her husband secretly administered her with sedatives concealed in servings of ice cream. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And a recap of the main news this week. The polls continued to show a very tight race in the US presidential election, with US Vice President Kamala Harris and her rival Donald Trump remaining in a virtual dead heat. Striking workers at US plane maker Boeing rejected a 35% pay raise offer this week. And the White House said that any North Korean troops fighting for Russia in Ukraine would be considered fair targets. And that's the Week in Review. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
Hundreds of exasperated Americans confirmed Thursday that, for fuck's sake, the article they just clicked on is actually a stupid video.
I clicked on the story thinking I'd be in and out of there in 30 seconds, but then that little buffering thing popped up and I was like, here we go.
Quickly hitting the mute button after being disoriented by a loud blast of noise from some stupid ad for Hotels.com, many of the deceived then scanned the webpage for some corresponding write-up so that they could simply read in peace, but reports indicated that would just be too convenient, wouldn't it?
Look, I don't want to watch a report or interview or panel discussion or whatever the hell this is. I just want to skim an article real quick and move on with my day. This is bullshit.
After seriously considering hitting the back button on their browsers, sources say the majority of readers decided to just let the video play out.
You know what? I'll watch the thing, and I'll probably watch the next video that automatically loads afterwards.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. That means you can call 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And Free Talk Live is brought to you by LibertyMinded.com. Official Free Talk Live gear like t-shirts and hoodies, like the one I'm actually wearing right now, are available at LibertyMinded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny liberty-oriented clothing at LibertyMinded.com. That's LibertyMinded.com. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
And Lori.
And we also have Aaron Day. There's no way for me to really signal to you to say your name, Aaron, because you're remote tonight. Oh, I have you muted too. That would be good for me to unmute you. You're unmuted now.
Hello?
Sorry, yeah, we hear you. I'm going to go to the callers first. We've gotten a bunch of calls tonight, and some people I haven't heard from in a while, like Tim from Florida. Tim, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Well, I did the early voting thing yesterday.
Oh, Florida has that?
Yeah, I didn't even know if I was eligible. I called the number, and the guy thought I was an idiot. He's like, everybody's eligible. Like, you're a moron.
Wow. I wouldn't have known.
He didn't actually say that, but yeah, it was just kind of the tone, like, how would I know that?
Mm-hmm. I totally know what you mean.
But I just have some recommendations for our radio listeners. Look, if you support Israel, it doesn't matter if you vote for Trump or Harris, because the weapons and the money will continue to flow. They're both AIPAC. And I voted for a third choice, Chase Oliver. He's the Libertarian candidate. Really haven't heard anybody talking about him, but he doesn't seem to have any connections to AIPAC.
I know that is a big thing for you. Have you been keeping track still of what's going on with Israel and Palestine? Like, really paying attention to what's going on over there?
But I have, and Lebanon as well, and it's, I miss a lot because it's exhausting and it's repetitive because the same operations are just being done over and over and over again. And and you get desensitized and you get jaded, and all that comes out in a variety of ways. But I've gone far beyond that. Expanded into research. I'm studying Hebrew right now. I'm interested in studying Hebrew because I want to read all of the religious texts in Hebrew. Also interested in learning Arabic, for the same reason. Really getting into Middle Eastern studies, going all the way back to like prehistory. And for example, Gaza was actually wiped out when I think at the time according to the Meneshus Stele, which is an Egyptian, basically an Egyptian document with hieroglyphics, and it makes reference to a people called like the Hebrew, which was basically a Egyptian word for slave. And they were basically living in Gaza at the time, and there's an account that the Egyptians wiped everybody in Gaza out. Like, it's a very, very old place.
They were called Hebrew?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But I think it was an Egyptian word at one time for slave. But that place has been destroyed so many times under Alexander the Great. Yeah, it just goes on and on.
Wow. What the heck?
And it's not just Gaza, like, people wonder why I'm so obsessed with it. It's because I've had friends from when I lived, actually my best friend in middle school and high school were very close at the time. I won't say his name, but he was a Lebanese, and his sister was, they were both half Lebanese, half American, and his grandmother and cousins came from Beirut, and we had all these plans. He was going to take me to Beirut, really beautiful place. I never got to go, but anyway, I was introduced to like Lebanese food there, and when they came over and visited, so like I've had dinner, sat down and had dinner with these people, and then when I lived in California, there was a burger joint called Al's Burgers, and they were Gazan, and they would always give my ex-girlfriend a milkshake, like for free. They would just insist.
That's nice.
And they had one of those like amusement machines, but it had like money inside instead of like prizes. So you had to knock the disc out.
No, I don't know that. Knock the disc out?
Yeah, it's like you put quarters in, and normally you're knocking prizes out or something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. But and I've also my best friend in technical school. He was his mother's Jewish, and so therefore he's Jewish, even though he's atheist, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he, like, if he wanted to go over there, if he wanted to go over to Israel, he could have dual citizenship. He could fight in the IDF if he wanted to. He's taller than me. I mean, nobody here knows how tall I am. But yeah, it's wild. It breaks my heart, because there's a lot of background. It's not just like, I know some people are like, oh, you ask half these people, they don't even know where Israel is on the map, and really my interest peaked, after October 7th, but there was a time in 2009 when I had a very similar reaction, and it was a very similar situation, but for a shorter duration of time.
Something Israel was doing?
Yeah, it goes on and on, way before. And, and both sides have committed aggressions. Like, you can go back to 1929, and there's the Arab Revolt, and there's two versions of that. So you'll have two different sides telling two different stories, and who knows? I'm not there.
Yeah, I don't think you should have to defend yourself to these people who ask you, oh, why do you care? Like, you can care about people getting murdered by governments.
Mm-hmm. Well, because I also think it's coming here, and I would think it would be odd not to be interested on a show like this, just because we always talk about police brutality, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Or that's like the penultimate example of everything you talk about here when it comes to liberty and violations of liberty. It's like magnified times a billion there. And that I guess it's just like so surreal. It's hard for people to want to think about. And I get that.
Yeah. The other thing is that's kind of why we're a call and talk radio show, because it's like the hosts can't talk about every single thing going on, but you are free to bring it up, and I'm glad you do.
And besides that, I just found out I have high cholesterol. I thought I had high blood pressure from the kratom, which I quit. I don't think I've had any kratom for like a week. Yeah, but I don't know. What do you guys know about, guys? What do you guys know about? What am I? 30s. What do you know about high cholesterol? You're always talking about health and stuff.
I would say the only thing that I know is that I would never let a doctor put me on statins because they fundamentally change how your body processes lipids, and that is, I've like texted my parents just to tell them, like, are either of you on statins, or have your doctors ever tried to get you on statins? And I just don't want anyone I love to be on statins. It's the most prescribed medicine. That's all I know.
The only thing I know about it is that the research is so confusing because on one hand, they'll be like, don't eat eggs, don't eat this, don't eat that. And then they're also like, well, your cholesterol has nothing to do with what you eat. Like, which is it? I have no idea.
I tend to not believe them when they say anything has nothing to do with what you eat. Like, that's a huge thing for dermatologists, is if you try to tell your dermatologist, like, I have acne, and, well, I read that if you don't eat this or you do eat that, it can help. Like, dermatologists will get physically angry at or visibly angry at you for like suggesting that your diet could affect acne. It's crazy.
It obviously does. So yeah. I feel like most body conditions can be highly influenced by just taking care of yourself.
Yep.
Just, move your body a moderate amount and eat healthy, and you'll probably see better numbers.
I would definitely also look into just avoiding polyunsaturated fatty acids, but so this isn't a command or anything. I really don't like, telling people what is right or wrong. For all I know, there's somebody out there with a body, I really don't believe this at all, but for all I know, there's somebody out there with a body that thrives on seed oils, but I just really doubt it. And if I were you, I would experiment on yourself by seeing if you change stuff in your diet, if it works for you. Like avoiding seed oils would be the first thing I tried if I was dealing with any kind of a serious illness.
I would just eat as close to a natural human diet as possible. If I was seeing, like high cholesterol or diabetes or anything like that, I would just eat how a primitive human would eat, like lots of fruits and vegetables and nuts and things like that, and some meat.
Well, the thing is, I don't believe that they ate a lot of nuts, and a huge reason why some people don't believe that, even though like it's always been taught that they do, is because if you think about it, they were holding on to any kind of seed, which a nut is just like a tree seed, any kind of seed, so that way they had the ability to plant it again, and they weren't just eating them.
Not all of them, like pine nuts just come from pine cones.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you're not going to plant all of those.
Yep, you're not going to plant all of them, but you're definitely not going to eat as many as go into a seed oil.
No,
so
but
that's a huge thing.
But you are going to eat the seeds and nuts that are available naturally around you.
I just don't think they would eat as many as people believe that they eat.
No.
Definitely not of like things that they plant. Go ahead, Aaron.
Well, I think regardless of what they used to eat, the foods that we have right now are so engineered that it's very difficult to tell what the nutritional value is. And this has actually been frustrating. I used to go to Costco because being keto, they actually used to have a fairly good selection of food. And then now you actually have to check the food labels on anything. So even nuts, they will actually add seed oils to nuts.
That's a huge thing. Yes, that's a huge thing at Aldi. Ian and I used to shop at Aldi all the time, and there's a little section of like nuts, and we used to eat a lot of nuts, and Ian still eats a lot of nuts. And we always have to check we check every single label at all. And if we were going to buy like cashews, for example, if there was an option without seed oils, we'd get that one, but they toast it. The best thing is to eat or to get them raw if you're going to eat them.
Yeah, can't you just avoid all that by getting them in the shell?
By getting them raw in general, then they don't cook them with seed oils.
Well,
and
even peeled, you don't know what kind of contamination went onto it.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point.
So, but if you get them in the shell, they're still in their shell.
Yep.
You can, but they're genetically engineering even what you get to begin with. And so I know this has happened with vitamin B17 and a whole variety of other things. So
what did they do?
They just genetically crossbreed different things and then eliminate some of the nutritional value in it. Or even if you look at something like strawberries, they've been genetically engineered. Strawberries are now huge, but they basically designed them to have more sugar and more fructose, which has bad effects. I don't have an answer for this because this has actually been a challenge. I've been traveling a lot. Like I learned something the other day. I usually get sparkling water. and they didn't have sparkling water, so I got tonic water. And then I found out that they're now adding high fructose corn syrup to tonic water.
That's insane.
So I inadvertently had high fructose corn syrup, which I never have any of. I have zero of that or zero added sugar in my diet. And so now I have to check everything, even something that you have to check the same brand, because they're changing the ingredients within the brand and within the product.
Wow. I honestly, it's like I can't eliminate everything I eat, like everything that is possible to eat. So one thing I have like kind of purposely not really looked much into is the genetically modified stuff, and that is that is a crazy thing. That is if that is going on, that they're modifying certain nutrients out of foods. Wow, that is a huge reason to try to avoid that if you can.
A lot of vegetables and stuff are not in their natural state because it's not profitable, like avocados, and some are even just totally engineered in general.
Bananas.
Like bananas, but they're not like GMO in a lab, but they're like bred for specific characteristics. And one of the things they do is like a longer shelf life. They breed things for longer shelf lives, and it ends up, lowering the nutritional value inadvertently or affecting the flavor. Like that's why tomatoes, when you buy tomatoes at the store, they taste like trash. Like if you ever had a tomato directly from the garden, it's so much tastier than a tomato you buy at the store.
Even though my parents like put poison on their garden and it makes me so annoyed, I still like their tomatoes and stuff so much more than like I kind of hate tomatoes that aren't like from a garden for the most part.
Organic vegetables are covered in poison too. Like the ones you buy at the store, they're also covered in poison, just different poisons. It's just organic poison.
Yeah, I don't really fall for that. Once in a while when I'm feeling like it, I'm always comparing anything I have an option of. Once in a while, I'll be like, I'll go with the organic one. I don't know, placebo effect if anything, but not if it's like $5 more or something.
Some of them I go for organic, like what is it called? Like the Dirty 8 or whatever it's called. There's like a list of certain things, like strawberries, because they have such soft fiber to them. They absorb.
Mushrooms one?
I don't think mushrooms is one of them. But bananas are so like resistant to being pesticide laden inside of the banana that it doesn't make much of a difference to buy organic. I do it anyway because it's like the same price. So I buy the organic ones, but
yeah, anytime they're like the same price, I'm just like, whatever, I'll get the organic thing.
Yeah, bananas are so cheap that it doesn't even matter.
Today I got mushrooms that were organic, but that was more because of the store I was at. Everything is organic there, and I wanted mushrooms today. So we have another caller on the line. Thank you so much for the call, Tim. We have Kadu in Connecticut on the line. Kadu, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Yeah, you're not kidding about those garden tomatoes compared to store-bought tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple store-bought varieties. There's one like on the vine that's decent, but compared to the garden, you can really taste the difference. And I had a neighbor here who showed me his garden. He wheels out this little cart, and you can put money in. It's just an honor system.
Oh, nice.
And so I bought some of those, and they're actually very good. But I was gonna tell you, Bonnie, you created an accidental portmanteau when you were talking about the eugenics agenda, the eugenda.
Oh, did I say that on accident?
Yeah, it kind of works.
That's funny. I didn't mean to say that. Portmanteaus are Captain's department.
I know, but he fled.
He posted one today on Twitter.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I have. What are you gonna say?
I was just gonna say the portmanteau he put on Twitter today was horror, like horror movie, plus corridor is a horridor. I don't know if maybe somebody will use that in a movie title now. Anything else?
I don't know. You think is Skeeter scaring everyone away, or?
We had a lot of callers today. Like we had one new caller and then one person I haven't heard from in a while.
I feel like I've scared Skeeter away because I've heard him call in lately, but he never calls when I'm on, which is nice.
Not about the callers. I just mean like, oh, well, Captain's not doing it, and then Peakless Mountaineers not doing it. Is
no way. I really don't think so. I don't
Skeeter
think
has no
scared.
power.
Yeah, no.
Don't make him think he has power.
Well, I like to make a lot of connections that don't exist, so I didn't really think that was why. But and you know what? I don't hate Skeeter. He's all right. You know what?
I don't hate him either, but I don't like him.
Do you have any thoughts on cholesterol, Kadu? I know you also are interested in health and nutrition. Like the last caller, he asked what we would do if we found out we had high cholesterol.
I'm not an expert on it. From what I just understand, really generally, that the way that they measure it, that it's more complicated than like it, and that also.
Wait. Oh, sorry. Are you saying like
having high?
Oh, go ahead.
What?
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to clarify. When you were saying like how they measure it, it's more complicated. Are you saying like, is it one of those situations where the doctor will get your blood serum levels, but really it can be, you can find a bigger picture with other tests? Is that the type of thing you're saying?
I wish that I knew the details. I only remember really generally that the test that they do for it isn't specific enough or really tell you enough about if it's a problem. And I also heard some kind of argument that that cholesterol being high or showing up and having high cholesterol is like, I heard an analogy that it's like the cholesterol is kind of showing up at the scene of the crime. So it shows up there like if you had a fire or something, this is the analogy I heard. If you had a fire, the firefighters showed up, it would be like saying, well, we have this fire and there's firefighters here. So the firefighters must have had something to do with this fire.
That
but really,
is
they
great.
were just a response to this.
I think that
I didn't make it up. So.
I think that one of the things that contributes to people having high cholesterol, like there's good cholesterol and bad cholesterol, and I think that one of the things is that people are eating way too many omega-6s and not enough omega-3s.
Another thing I think is that people shouldn't just go be getting tested for things when they don't feel bad. I'm sorry. I don't believe that you should just be like constantly testing yourself for COVID if you don't feel bad and then saying, oh my God, I can't go to the Sabrina Carpenter concert tonight because I tested. Why did you test yourself if you don't feel bad? If it all it was up to the test, is what I'm saying, then you must not feel that bad.
Right. You didn't feel sick and you took a test anyway. Why?
Yeah. Why and it's not just COVID. It's like everything. Like there are so many times on Twitter that I talk about, health, and then people, and I'll say like, oh, I've been feeling so much better after I stopped doing this or blah, blah, blah. And somebody says to me, how do you know? Have you gotten tested for this? And I'm like,
I feel better. I don't need to get a test.
Like, why would I'm not sure. I'm not saying that is what Tim is doing, but there are definitely people that like develop a pathology over testing things.
I hate getting tested for things because like if I feel fine, I don't want them to tell me that there's something, because then I'll be like, oh no.
And when I got my like just general like blood levels of things tested from like a doctor, it's like they didn't have like much insight to give me. I was like, well, what does this mean? I'd rather get tested from somebody who's like a expert in like that one specific thing I want to know about, and then like do my own like experiments on myself. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. The last segment is coming up, so don't go anywhere. It's Free Talk Live.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Fork Fest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th through the 16th. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 13th through the 16th. Forkfest.party.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. In the US presidential election, campaigning heated up throughout the week as that November 5th election gets ever nearer. One poll out on Friday from the New York Times showed that they remained locked in a dead heat, with them both tied nationally. FSN's Benji Hire reports.
48% to 48%. This race is simply too close to call. Both Harris and Trump are struggling to edge a lead in the overall popular vote. This election will likely come down to the tightest of results in just a handful of states. It's there where campaigning continues today and into the weekend to try to convince those still undecided about which way they'll swing.
Also this week, the US Vice President Kamala Harris said that she believes her rival Donald Trump is a fascist. It came after his former chief of staff said the former president wanted the kind of generals that Hitler had. FSN's Mitch McCann reports.
When asked if Donald Trump was a fascist during the CNN town hall event in Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris replied, "Yes, I do. Yes, I do." It follows the Atlantic article in which John Kelly, Mr. Trump's former chief of staff, said he believed that Trump met the definition of the word. Meanwhile, the former president has seized on comments by President Biden, who said earlier this week of Trump, "We got to lock him up," before correcting himself to say he meant politically lock him up. Mr. Trump says it's proof of election interference, suggesting without evidence that the current president is behind his many legal problems. Mitch McCann, New York.
During the week, striking workers at the US plane maker Boeing rejected a pay offer with a 35% pay rise. Around two-thirds of the members from the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers rejected the proposal, meaning that the 6-week-long strike for workers in the US remained in place. US National Security Council spokesman John Kirby this week said that North Korean troops would be considered fair game and fair targets if they were deployed to fight for Russia in Ukraine. FSN's Megumi Lim sent this report from Kiev.
Based on U.S. intelligence assessments, at least 3,000 North Korean soldiers are believed to have been dispatched to eastern Russia for training. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said it was too early to confirm whether they would enter into combat alongside Russian troops, but said it was a highly concerning probability. Pyongyang is already supplying Moscow with munitions in exchange for key military technology. And with their possible deployment to Ukraine, the North Korean military would gain critical combat experience and information about the performance of their weapons systems.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number here. That's 603-283-6160. And you should definitely check out freetalkcast.com. It's a new podcast that is 30 to 45 minutes long and releasing once a week. You can find it at freetalkcast.com. It's brought to you by the same people who bring you Free Talk Live, and we'd love for you to check it out. And it's been going on for several months now, freetalkcast.com. And you can also check out our archive if you go to our SoundCloud too at Free Talk Live. And that's where you can also find the podcast, the new podcast. It's Free Talk Live, and on the show with you tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Lori.
And then we also have Aaron Day on with us remotely. And we are going to go to the phones because we have like a completely not open, we have a completely filled phone line right now. So I'm going to go to Major Payne. Major Payne in Michigan, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hi, Bonnie. How you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good. Well, a couple of things. I got some interesting tidbits on food, and then one interesting tidbit out of the news. But as far as like bananas, if you put them in your refrigerator to store them, the skin will turn dark on them. You know, they look like they're getting funky, but they stay nice and firm inside.
Mm-hmm.
They don't go bad. They stay just like they were when they were nice and yellow, just like you want them.
Bananas, but bananas I get a little bit weirded out by because they like spray them with this gas to keep them fresh. I forget what the gas is, but I only know about it because I've worked in like grocery stores and convenience stores where they had bananas, and when they come they're all packaged up, and I asked about it one time and they told me that they spray them, they like fog them with a chemical to keep them fresh, to keep them from ripening.
There's a lot of different produce that they treat in such a manner. But anyway, it keeps their firmness, and they don't get that. You know how they get so gooky, you got to make banana bread out of them.
That's the best part.
Yeah, I like them when they're like already soft, or like they get super soft.
I'll only eat them like as a banana before they turn yellow. I don't like them once they turn yellow, it's trash to me.
You mean
I just
green?
wait for like kind of green, like
Whoa.
yellowish green. I like them like when they're all starchy.
I'm the opposite. Completely.
Oh, so good.
I like them to get gooey and almost be bad.
No, once they're yellow, they just sit there and wait for banana bread time.
Because they get like super sweet when they're like that.
Once you refrigerate them, they'll stay as firm as they were when you put them in. But anyway, so another couple little tidbits is on your milk. If you drop like a silver spoon or a real silver coin into the jug, it can last up to 2 weeks longer.
Whoa. I have a bunch of like 1/10 of an ounce silver things.
Mm-hmm.
Another helpful tidbit on the milk too is most of us get it in the plastic jugs anymore. If you just till they're about half gone, it's kind of hard to do then. But you just squeeze the sides of the jug and get all the air out of it, then cork it tight. Because if you eliminate the air, you eliminate the bacteria. That also extends the life of it.
Interesting. I only buy the plastic because I luckily have a choice at my store from plastic or glass. Every time I don't already have one in the freezer, I buy the glass because, well, it's not in plastic. And then whenever I want to freeze one, I buy the plastic. But maybe I'll start trying that. I'll try the silver thing too, but I'm gonna like really clean it first.
It lasts like 2 days in my house, so I have no need for this.
Did you guys hear about the sheriff that shot the judge?
Yeah.
No.
They've been keeping this on the hush hush. It happened down in Kentucky, I guess probably about 3 weeks ago now, maybe. But anyway, when they finally did take the sheriff into custody for shooting and it was his own judge, he sat as the bailiff in the court most of the time. So him and the judge had, kind of a long-standing relationship. They were supposed to be buddies and such. But when they snatched him up and were taking him to jail, he must have still been in possession of his phone because he was caught sending a cryptic message to somebody saying that they were trying to steal his wife and his daughter. So
that the judge was trying to steal his own wife and daughter? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they were trying to kidnap his family, some such manner.
Were they trying to kidnap him, or like was his wife having an affair with the judge?
I don't know the particulars of it. Like I said, they just busted out with that one kind of vague sentence and left it all hanging. I only heard one news blip about this whole thing in the month I've been keeping my ears perked up, hoping I'd hear something more about it, but I never have.
Interesting. The thing about it is, like, when you do a job, like, where you're doing stuff that technically facilitates in kidnapping people, like, oh, you're the judge in this case, and my wife is on trial for doing something that didn't actually hurt anyone else. The jury decides a thing, and then you just decide that they're going to be in prison for 8 years, for example. It's like, I don't really feel bad.
I don't think his wife was under legal jeopardy. That's not the gist of it.
That's what I was just like guessing or saying, like, well, if it is that.
I bet she was having an affair with the judge, and he was like, he's trying to steal my wife.
it's not very often you hear of a local judge capping or a local sheriff capping a local judge.
Yeah, usually they're buddies.
Especially not in Podunk, Kentucky, you know.
I mean, I feel like the pool of officers is not what it once was. Also, they're all full of mental health issues, and
this is a 20-year sitting sheriff. I mean, he's elected year after year. This isn't just a beat cop that got hired out of the motor pool.
Well, but the other thing is that when you're dealing with dirty deeds, and you're doing that with other people, you could easily turn on each other, etc. You're all doing dirty deeds together.
Well, you lie down with dogs, you get up with fleas.
Yeah,
that's
what I meant.
Girls, you guys have a good evening.
You too. Thank you. We have Dana from Michigan. That's what it is. We have Dana from Michigan on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hi, Bonnie. Hi, Lori.
Hi.
Hey, I wanted to tell you, Bonnie, the name of that, if you go to YouTube, the name of that red flag thing you were talking about was, it's called the network, or the name of the channel is called Jubilee.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what it is. I did see that.
Yeah, Jubilee. And the one that you were talking about was with Ben Shapiro, and they had 25 people. That particular one was called specifically Surrounded. So they did it with Charlie Kirk from Turning Point USA, surrounded by a bunch of Kamala voters and woke students. And then Ben Shapiro was some adults, but some of them students. I guess what irritates me about that, whenever you have these students come to these different, things on campus, I don't know, this wasn't a campus thing. This Jubilee is its own thing, its own production company that goes around to different states. So you can go to their channel and fill out a form and be one of the participants, challenging as a person, the guest, like Ben Shapiro. The one thing that irritates me, especially, it's mostly college students, but sometimes it's high school, but it's often they go to college campuses. So, because, the kids are 18 years, their voting age, is the arrogance, the hubris that, these kids challenge these guys. And it's not just that they challenge them. There's the arrogance there. That's the first step. The second step is they're arguing with them I'm going to use Ben Shapiro, like he's such an idiot. Whether a person agrees with him or not, that man is brilliant. He's very, very knowledgeable and not just well educated, because people can get well educated by going to school, and it's not even an education, it's indoctrination.
Yeah.
He is knowledgeable because he is a lawyer, but he wasn't indoctrinated. He did all of this stuff on his own. Self-bred people I admire them. They're some of the most brilliant people in the world because they're debating against their own mind. Do you know what I mean? When you're self-read, as compared to going to an indoctrination center like a public college.
Yeah, then you're just parroting facts.
Exactly. Even the private ones. And these kids that were debating then, you could hear the talking points, because I do a lot of research myself. I used to do it for a living. So I can cut to the chase and get to things other people can't get to really, really fast. And it doesn't matter what the channel, it could be far left, far right, anything in between, libertarian. The people on the left say the exact same mantra. It doesn't change. And it's their body language, their rolling of the eyes, their facial expressions, that you're so stupid, that you're so dumb you don't even get what they're saying.
Yeah.
Whereas you're trying to tell them, you guys are just spewing the stuff your communist professors told you. You didn't do any of the research because you're using the exact same nomenclature. They're not even bright enough to change the word.
And you can see it, like when you challenge them back, you can see them completely unhinged. Like they get that wide-eyed insanity look on their face.
Oh, God, you know why? I saw this, and I'm not going to claim this for my own. Someone wrote, I'll tell you how you can cheat and judge the climate of what's going on is read comments. When you look at these different political things or whatever you're watching, it could be climate change, it could be abortion, read the comment section and you can kind of gauge where people are because people comment, on YouTube, on the internet from around the world. So this one guy says he was mocking a white male woke student challenging Dinesh D'Souza. I saved it, but I can't remember what thumb drive I saved it onto. Anyway, so this was years ago. He was at a college campus and this kid is challenging him. So one guy writes in the comment section, he says, I know you've traveled the world. You've written dozens and dozens of books. He's speaking like he's pretending he's the student challenging him. He said, and I know you've done many docu-movies and you're very highly educated, but I'm so smart and I know I am because my mom says I am. And I just lost it. I thought that summarizes all of these stupid college students. Now, one other thing that I want to say is I want to get to climate change. I've read the thing, and again, I can't find which article. It was a financial article. There were a couple different places. One was financial and one was general, and I saved it to a thumb drive, the address, and now I can't find the exact verbiage. Otherwise, I would have read it. It's only like 2 really long sentences. There's a woman. She is a Costa Rican diplomat. You can look her up. Her name is, it starts with a C, Cristiana Figueres. She was the executive secretary to the framework for climate change from the UN. So that guy that called in freaking out about climate change and people sitting in their cars, first of all, communist countries don't give a rat's tail about climate change.
Yeah.
China, North Korea, Russia, even though they're technically not communist, Vietnam, they don't care. India's not communist, but they don't care. Not India, with the exception of India, those other countries I mentioned, and not Vietnam, but China and North Korea would love world domination, and so would Russia. They don't care about climate change. So those are the main polluters, Vietnam, India, and China. So it doesn't matter how much, you wouldn't believe how much the United States has cut carbon. So these people calling your show and other shows or going and making comments on the internet, we have cut our emissions so unbelievably. It's the other countries. And we're not going to be able to control them because they control their own countries. But this Cristiana Figueres, the first, when they came up with the Paris Agreement on climate change, she was one of the leaders. She was the secretary for this thing, not secretary like take notes, but she was the leader of this framework to lay out the Paris Climate Agreement. You can do the research. She said the quiet part out loud, you guys. She said, this is nothing to do with climate. This is about rethinking capitalism and the monetary structure. So you know what that means. That they're globalists. That's what this is about. It is about control. Just like the vaccine, which really wasn't a vaccine, it was an experimental shot, but the vaccine and the masks weren't about stopping spread. It was about control. And until people understand this, they're going to be going crazy. That guy opened up with, oh, we have all this extreme weather. Actually, no, we don't. But they don't know the history. Do you know who started this climate change nonsense? Ban Ki-moon. He is not a scientist and a climatologist nor a meteorologist. He isn't even a daggone weatherman.
Who is he?
He is an engineer, and he was the head of the UN. He started this because they saw the ability to control other people by doing this agenda.
Yep, I totally believe it. Karlin Boroshenko, she's like a YouTuber. She also is a psychologist before she was a leftist and then got just like so turned off by them. She went more right wing, and she says that everything that leftists talk about is just is really like it's a cloak, and really what they're talking about is ending capitalism. Like she says, whenever they're talking about whiteness, they mean capitalism.
Well, actually, this whole thing related to carbon goes back to the 1930s with a movement called technocracy. And the whole movement of technocracy is to flip the economy from being a price-based system to one based on energy credits. So this energy credit idea started in the 1930s, and it is the basis of the UN Agenda 2030. And in fact, it is the final step for CBDCs, is to flip the global currency to a single digital currency backed by energy credits. But if you want more proof of this, there is already a MasterCard called the Doconomy MasterCard that tracks your carbon usage, and it actually shuts off when you use too much carbon. So this is a product that already exists in the marketplace. MasterCard already has relationships with over 150 companies. And you probably noticed when you buy an airline ticket now, it tells you how much CO2 you're using and whether it's green or not. Well, they've actually been building that into a number of different products. So they've already built the infrastructure using our existing financial system to track carbon, tie it to financial transactions, and then censor and block your ability to spend money.
And banks also have the ESA. Oh man, I forgot what it is right now. Scores. It's
I think it's ESG.
Yeah.
Environmental governance and
social, maybe?
Social.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So people who called conservatives, I'm not going to say Republicans because I'm not, but conservatives, and I am, with a libertarian bent, who called all of us crazy and conspiracy theorists and Alex Jones, and I never even knew who the guy was or saw him until just recently, but thought we were all drinking the Kool-Aid. They're the ones who they don't think analytically. They don't read it all and then decide. They don't consider their sources. And so all of this stuff is all tied in. But what they do is this psychological phenomena that's been in psychology for many, many years. I don't know. It goes back DSM. It goes way back to who wrote Rules for Radicals?
Saul Alinsky.
What's his name?
Saul Alinsky.
This is one of his rules. I think there are 9 of them. One of the rules is make gaslighting, basically. Make the other person think they're crazy.
Wow.
They tell us what they're doing and laugh at us when we try to tell other people, because then they're calling us, well, they're just crazy. They're right-wing lunatics.
They're conspiracy theorists. Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. So the guy on climate needs to chill out. One last point I want to make. The guy that called about replacing human beings with robots, first of all, you lose all your credibility, whatever his name was, if you don't use your big words. Too many of these young people that are techno-bright, with technology and engineering, they cannot express themselves. So when you get on a national radio station, common sense and logic would tell you there are women listening and men. And the quickest way to offend an audience is use the F word as a noun, a verb, an adjective, a modifier. This turns people off.
It's kind of interesting. People. I kind of questioned if he really was like this scientist guy multiple times just from the way he was talking. I hate to say it.
Right. What do you mean? Like, this is not like
stuff like that.
The best way to like express yourself and make you sound like real intelligent?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm glad you said it.
The thing is those people who are in fact onto something trying to replace human beings, I'll tell you something. A very wise woman once said, you'll know end times are near when people start playing God. And he forgot that the human being, as flawed as we are made in the image and likeness of God. And so he needs to, I just completely discounted him. He embarrassed himself on a national radio show. So he needs to think about that and get himself together before he calls again. You know, some of these young people, like these students that go to these campus events, they're so impressed with themselves. You're supposed to let other people tell you how great you are. You don't tell people how great you are. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You should never be impressed with yourself. You should always be like, I could do better.
Exactly.
That's how you grow.
Well, you know what? It was lovely talking to you, Lori and Bonnie, and the gentleman. Is it Aaron Day?
Yeah.
He was wonderful. I tuned in late today because I had a previous engagement. Oh my gosh, I'm going to play this. You guys still post this stuff online, right? After the show?
Yeah, you can go to our website, freetalklive.com, to find whichever place you want to listen to it from.
Okay, but you're still putting those out there.
Yep, we are.
Okay, because I want to hear more about what he said. He was just, and he's got a very, very, now see, Mr. Science Guy creating non-human robots needs to listen to Aaron. He was very grounded. He has a very good radio voice, and he talks so, I mean, you're just like, yeah, I can see that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so, okay, just remember, no matter what, I know Tim called and said he voted for Oliver. He just threw away his vote.
Yeah.
Even if you hate Trump, we were better off. This woman, I don't think ever in the history did we have a chance to see what two presidential candidates are really like. We know what it was like under Trump. We know what it was like under Harris, because she claims she was in the room every time with Biden. So we know what's going to happen if she gets in. So I'm sorry he threw his vote away, but vote Trump. I just want $2 gas. I want my groceries affordable. I just, I don't give a rat's tail what he tweets at 3 a.m. As long as we're prospering, this is a good thing.
I want free speech, so that's why I want him over Kamala.
Thank you so much, Dana. And a really good point is that Kamala really wants to distance herself from Biden all of a sudden, when she used to say stuff like what she said, like, I'm always involved and I'm in the room.
Mm-hmm.
With him.
It's change. It's change from me to me.
Yeah, basically. Well, Aaron, what is your website again so people can find you?
daylightfreedom.org, and then I'm on Twitter at Aaron R. Day.
Thanks so much for listening. It's Free Talk Live. You can go to freetalklive.com. Also check out freeiannow.org. That's the new website that's been put together for Ian Freeman, founder of the show. Thanks for listening, and peace.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations